Well, we're down here at the Noosa Triathlon Expo, and with me is two-time Ironman world champion, and he's won a couple other world championships as well. Chris McCormack. Chris, thank you for talking to us.
Thanks again.
Chris, I want to start, before we dip into Kona this year, and before we dip
I knew you were going to go to Kona.
Before we dip into the challenge deal,
yeah.
I want to just get your opinion on how you think the Australians fared at the Olympics this year.
I thought the women did wonderfully. I think Erin Densham showed that, you know, if you're focused and driven, you have a goal, and regardless of what other people think in the build-up, and you stay focused on that, the sky's the limit. I thought Jacko did amazing for a young girl to have a lot of that pressure and to come through and do it. And unfortunately for Moffy, she had a crash that put her out. I think the men did as expected. You know, it was a solid team, but you know, when you've got a level in the sport nowadays that is so far in front of where our athletes are, and I mean that with utmost respect to the guys because I was racing with them, and they would agree. The Brownleys and the Gomez's and the French, that level is remarkable. Then, you know, they did the best they could, but you know, looking at where you can go from here, you're going to have to take that into consideration. Our federation and our high performance program needs to be realistic, and if they want to be successful, I know Aaron Royal did fantastically recently. He's the under-23 world champion. He's definitely a guy, I think, who can put himself in a position to be competitive with the Olympics to come. But no, there needs to be some changes, and there needs to be, you know, athletes held accountable and coaches to be held accountable. And I think with extra racing and that sort of system in place, we're not out of the game. So we did the best we could, I think.
Now let's move on to the big dance.
Okay.
To Kona. Tell us a bit about your preparation, because we've seen Darren Smith come out on Twitter and apologise to you directly and to Ronnie Schildner that, you know, that you got the preparation wrong. Talk us through your preparation and how it differed to a normal Kona for you.
I thought my preparation was brilliant, and I've been quite vocal in saying that I don't blame Darren in any way, shape or form. I employed him in my build-up this year. We worked together prior to the ITU Long Course Worlds and were very successful there, and I opted to work with him going into Kona. I think he's a remarkably gifted coach. He, you know, and we made choices together. And I was a little bit apprehensive with the coming down at 2 weeks, just under 2 weeks. You know, I'd trained in Boulder before, and we'd always come down at 18 to 20 days. And he was, you know, he pushed both myself and Ronnie to come down a little later, stay at altitude higher, and we both agreed to that. So. There's no blame. I would have, you know, I was apprehensive, but I looked at the science he gave me, and I said, you know what, let's do that. But, you know, preparation was exceptional. I was in very, very good form, and, you know, I guess I'm going to get asked this question a lot, you know, what happened. I think it was an altitude thing because I ticked all the boxes. So, you know, I don't blame anyone. It's not how I envisaged it. Did I think I could win? I wouldn't have been there if I didn't think. There's been a lot of talk that I went there to announce the challenge deal. That's absolute bullshit. I went there because I thought I could win the race, and it didn't pan out. Does it mean I won't go back again? Absolutely not. I can tell you now, my last Kona will not be remembered for me, myself personally, in the back of a support vehicle. I'll be going back, whether that's to win. I'm going to go back to be the best I can be there. I think I have another good race on that island. I have too much respect for the event to finish it in my career with that kind of performance.
Talk about the swim for a second. You came out of the water, surprisingly for us, a little bit down.
Yeah, I was flat from the onset. That was, you know, when I first got to Kona, we arrived and I was Superman. And in years past, I'd always been really, really tired in that tapering block, and I was riding up and down, I was swimming like a fish. I was doing everything well. Then I had that normal lull that you have with the taper, and I just never seemed to come out of it. And you know, I was really tired in the swim. Great start, and I positioned myself well. In years past, I'd made errors in the swim, but I put myself next to great athletes. But I just struggled really from the onset, and you know, on the bike, I really struggled with my power. I was, you know, when I finally got on, you know, had Marino and Dirk with me. I just was constantly under load, and you know, I just knew there was something wrong there. I just, you know, I knew I had a lot more to offer, and you know, it was just one of those days. And I try to describe it as people, you know, it was like you've had a sickness for 3 or 4 days, you know, that flu, and that first session back when you're just weak and your mind's like, oh, what are you doing? Let's just go home. Like, it was that kind of feeling, and you know, you don't want that in the World Championships, and you know, but it's, you know, full credit to the guys that are up front. We all know the date. we all knew it, and I'm not here to make excuses. I have too much respect for that race. I could just go away and try and find answers. I think I've done that within my own camp, and I'm content with those. And full credit to guys like Pete Jacobs and Sebastian Kienle and Freddie Van Leert and all these guys that stood up, because that's what Ironman Hawaii is all about. It's about putting your hand up on the day that matters. It's not like ITU racing where you just got to be consistent over a series. It's about winning on the day, and we all know when that day is, and unfortunately it wasn't that way for me.
You mentioned a few of the young brigade, let's call them, the Sebastian Kienle's, the Pete Jacobs. Were you expecting these guys to do what they did on the day?
I'll be honest, I thought Sebastian could be, I've known Sebi for 6 or 7 years now, and trained with him a lot. We have mutual sponsors in Europe, and we've been training partners every time I'm there for the last 4 or 5 years. So I've known Sebi's ability, and it's just been a matter of time before he really delivered that. I didn't think he'd deliver it so quickly in Kona, and I thought with him 70.3 he was so relaxed going in with that world title, and he just had nothing to lose. And Pete Jacobs is a remarkable athlete, just a super talent. You look at Pete and you think, I would never have imagined that Pete would win Kona so easily, and but you just had to look at his second last year, his consistency in 4 Konas. Second last year was remarkable. I watched him on that course take on the world record holder in Raylert and really make him look average, and it took an athlete, a warrior like Craig Alexander to have his best ever Ironman to take Pete down. And I remember working for ESPN there last year. Crowy's in the medical tent getting IVs. Andreas Raylert is comatose, and there's Pete Jacobs running around, jumping around like he's done nothing. And I remember looking at the guy thinking, man, the sky's the limit for this guy. And mate, he's just a different being. He thinks a different way. And he said an interesting thing to me this year after the race when I said, Pete, you're the Ironman world champion. Like, I can't believe it. And he said, the funny thing, everyone said they couldn't believe it, but I always believed it. And that is the difference. And he said to me, I only need to be 1% better to beat Crowy. Crowy beat me by 1% last year, and that's what I went away and did. I just became 1% better. And when you think about that, that truly is the way to win that event. And Pete, the sky's the limit for Pete. It's up to the sport to, you're dealing with an athlete who's very confident driven. He's an emotional athlete, and if you get him in the right headspace, he's going to be very, very difficult to beat. But really, Raylert and Kienle and Jacobs are your future of this Ironman racing.